Hi, welcome to another video. So, DeepSeek has just pushed a pretty interesting update. The DeepSeek V4 Flash official API is now live in public beta, and the new version is called DeepSeek V4 Flash 0731. And this is not just some small patch. DeepSeek says they have massively upgraded the agent capabilities of this model to the point where its benchmark scores are now far surpassing the V4 Pro preview. So, the small model is now beating the preview of the big model on agentic tasks, which is kind of crazy. I've also run it through my own KingBench, and it actually did something on my bench that no other model has ever done, including Fable 5 and Opus 5. More on that in a bit. First, let's talk about what this update actually is. A while back, I covered the DeepSeek V4 Pro and V4 Flash previews, including how you can use them for free through NVIDIA NIM. That video will be linked below. Quick recap on Flash. It's the smaller model of the V4 family, a mixture of experts model with 284 billion total parameters and around 13 billion active parameters with a 1 million token context window. It's designed to be the fast and cheap one, while V4 Pro is the big 1.6 trillion parameter flagship. Now, here's the important detail about this 0731 update. DeepSeek has explicitly said that V4 Flash 0731 keeps the exact same model architecture and size as the preview version, so this is not a bigger model. It's the same 284 billion parameter flash, but with what looks like a serious round of agentic post-training on top. All the gains are coming from better training, not more parameters. They've also made it clear that this upgrade applies only to the DeepSeek V4 Flash API. The V4 Pro API and the models in the app and on the web remain unchanged for now. And at the end of their announcement, they said the official release of DeepSeek V4 Pro is coming ASAP. So, this Flash update is basically the warm-up act, and the real headliner is still on the way. There's one more thing in this release that I think is a really smart move. The official V4 Flash now natively supports the responses API format, and DeepSeek says it is fully adapted for Codex. So, they're not just releasing a model and hoping tools support it, they're directly targeting the Codex harness, which means you should be able to plug this thing into Codex-style workflows without much friction. GLM and some other Chinese labs have been doing this kind of harness adaptation too, and it clearly works, so this is a good call. Now let's look at the official benchmarks, because the jumps here are honestly wild. On Terminal Bench 2.1, the new Flash gets 82.7, while the Flash preview got 61.8, and even the V4 Pro preview only got 72.1. That also puts it above GLM 5.2 at 81, and not that far behind Opus 4.8 at 85, which is a much more expensive model. The craziest one is DeepSWE. The preview got 7.3 on this, and the new version gets 54.4. That is going from basically useless to actually competitive, with GLM 5.2 at 46.2 and Opus 4.8 at 58. Cybergym went from 38.7 to 76.7. Toolathlon verified went from 49.7 to 70.3. And on their internal DSBench sets, the full stack one went from 37 to 68.7, and the hard coding agent one went from 25.8 to 59.6. So, across the board, this is a massive leap over its own preview. And in most of these agentic benchmarks, it's now sitting just below Opus 4.8, while being a much smaller and cheaper model. Small caveat though, DeepSeek notes that for the public code agent tasks, V4 Flash was tested using their upcoming DeepSeek harness framework in minimal mode at max tier with top P at 0.95 and temperature at 1. So, the harness matters here, and your results in other tools may differ a bit. Take it with a grain of salt, as always, but you know how it goes on this channel. We don't just take the marketing numbers, I ran it through my own benchmark, so let's get right into it. As always, I ran it through my KingBench questions. These include some front-end and animation tasks, some 3JS tasks, an SVG test, a math problem, a long horizon agentic task, and one really hard 3D task at the end. Each question is scored out of 10, and at the end, we'll look at the final chart to see where it lands against the other models. The first question is the elevator simulation. The model has to build a simulation where you can spawn people on different levels. There are 3 elevators. Each elevator can only take 1 person, and anyone left behind should catch the next elevator that comes. It also needs tooltips showing each person's target floor when you hover over them. Let's send it and see. And this one is just okay. It gets a 5 out of 10. The basic setup is there, but the core logic around people being left behind and picked up by the next elevator doesn't fully work, and the animation is not that clean either. For context, only the Opus models have ever gotten a 10 on this one, and models like Fable 5 and Kimi K3 sit at 9, so a pretty average start. The second question is the 3JS contact lens case. It should be a 3D model, of a contact lens case with pronounced L and R caps, and you should be able to click on the caps to open them up. This is a test where almost every model struggles. Let's send it and check. Okay, this is actually really good. It gets an 8 out of 10. The case looks like a proper contact lens case. The L and R caps are clearly there, and the click to open interaction works. That ties it with Qwen 3.8 Max and Opus 5 for the second best score ever on this question. Only behind Fable 5, which is still the only model to get a 10 here, so this is pretty great to see from a small model. The third question is the 3JS folding table. There's a slider, and as you drag it to the right, the table should unfold, and to the left, it should fold back. It needs to be seamlessly animated and properly 3D. Let's send it, and this gets a 7 out of 10. The table folds and unfolds with the slider, and the motion is mostly believable, just not fully seamless. The best models, like Fable 5, Kimi K3, GLM 5.2, and Sonnet 5, are at 9 here, but for comparison, Opus 5 only got a 5 on this one, so this is pretty good for sure. The fourth question is the SVG of a panda eating a burger. Let's send it and see. Okay, this is a recognizable panda and a recognizable burger, but the composition is a bit off, and it doesn't really look like it's eating it properly. It gets a 5 out of 10. The best models on this one, like Kimi K3, GLM 5.2, and Qwen 3.8 Max, sit at 8, so nothing special here. The fifth question is the bow and arrow simulator game, 4 targets, and hitting all the targets in the lowest time should put the player on the leaderboard. Let's send it and check, and this gets a 7 out of 10. The core shooting mechanic works, the targets register hits, and the leaderboard is functional, but the overall feel and polish is not at the level of the top models. Grok 4.5, Qwen 3.8 Max, and the Opus models have all gotten 10s here. Still, it's a playable game, so that's decent. The sixth question is the hard math problem about counting permutations of ordered pairs, and the answer should be 2460. A lot of models completely fail this one. Let's send it and see. And it nails it. 2460, exactly right. Full 10 out of 10. That puts it in the same club as Fable 5, Kimi K3, Qwen 3.8 Max, and the Opus models. Interestingly, the V4 Pro preview also got this right when I tested it, so the reasoning side of the V4 family is clearly solid. The seventh question is the big long horizon one. Generate a dataset of facts about pandas, fine-tune a Gemma 2B model on that dataset, and then build a local web UI that generates a panda fact on every refresh. All of it autonomously, from scratch, fully local. Let's send it and see. And this is a full 10 out of 10. It generated the dataset, ran the whole fine-tune on its own without getting stuck, and the web UI at the end just works, serving a fresh panda fact on every refresh. This is exactly the kind of long-horizon agentic task that DeepSeek claims to have upgraded. And honestly, it shows. The preview versions were nowhere near this reliable, so chef's kiss on this one. The eighth and final question is the 3D wristwatch, a full working wristwatch in 3D that shows the actual current time with smooth second, minute, and hour hands, a date and day option, and 2 time zones. This is the hardest question on the bench, and no model has ever done well on it. The best score ever was Fable 5 with just a 4 out of 10. Let's send it. And believe it or not, DeepSeek V4 Flash gets a 6 out of 10. That is the new all-time record on this question. The watch actually comes together as a proper 3D wristwatch. The hands track the real time with smooth motion, and the dual time zone setup mostly works. It's still not perfect, which is why it's not scoring higher, but this small model just beat Fable 5, Opus 5, and every other Frontier model on the single hardest question of my bench. I did not expect that at all. So this is the final chart, and DeepSeek V4 Flash, 0731, ends up with 58 out of 80, which is 72.5%. That puts it just above GPT 5.6. Sol at 71.25%, and just below GLM 5.2 at 75%. Above that, you have Kimi K3 and Opus 5 tied at 77.5, Opus 4.8 at 80, Qwen 3.8 Max at 81.25, and Fable 5 still on top at 82.5%. And here's the context that makes this actually impressive. When I tested the DeepSeek V4 Pro preview, it got 24.8% on this bench. The new Flash is at 72.5%, so the small model of the family is now nearly 3 times better than the big model's preview was on my bench, with the exact same architecture and size as its own preview. That is a ridiculous amount of improvement from post-training alone, and it lines up with what DeepSeek is claiming about the agentic upgrades. The pattern in the scores is also pretty clear. Everything that involves reasoning or long-horizon agentic work is basically maxed out. The math, the finituning task, and the record-setting watch attempt. The pure visual polish stuff, like the Panda SVG and the elevator animation, is where it's still mid. So, this really does feel like a model tuned hard for agentic coding, just like the official benchmarks suggest. So what's the verdict? If you ask me, this is now one of the best value models you can use for agentic coding. It's sitting in GLM 5.2 territory on my bench. It plugs directly into Codex-style tools thanks to the Responses API support, and DeepSeek pricing has always been extremely cheap. If you're a student or a developer on a budget, this is a really good option for sure. It's obviously not beating Fable 5 or Opus 4.8 overall, and the visual side is still average, but for the size and the price, this is kind of amazing. And remember, this is just the Flash model. The official DeepSeek V4 Pro is coming ASAP, according to them. If they apply this same agentic post-training to the 1.6 trillion parameter model, that release could be genuinely scary for the expensive closed models. I'll test it as soon as it drops, so stay tuned for that. Overall, it's pretty cool. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this video, consider donating through the Super Thanks option or becoming a member by clicking the Join button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye.